first, I want to say thank you to Servants at Work for inviting me to be here tonight. It's truly an honor to be in a room full of people who are actively changing lives. I want to start off tonight with a simple truth. Accessibility is something most people never think about until they have to. For many, accessibility is invisible. It's not something they notice when they walk into a building, travel somewhere new, or go about their daily routine. Doors open, paths are clear, spaces are usable, and because of that, accessibility becomes something that is easy to take for granted. But for others, accessibility is important. It determines where you can go, what you can do, how independent you can be. It can be the difference between being included or being left out. Now, I've had the opportunity to travel to some really incredible places throughout my life, like Hawaii, New York City, England, and Italy. And what I have learned through those experiences is this: the world is not built equally for everyone. Some places get it right, others not so much. In a city like New York, you expect everything to be fast, efficient, and accessible. But even there, challenges exist. And when they do, they don't just slow you down. They can stop you completely. Now, when I traveled to New York, I was super excited when I first got to be in the city and experience everything with all of my friends. I got to go my junior year of high school, but you go to a Broadway show. Everybody's sitting up in the balcony. Oh, unfortunately, we don't have wheelchair accessible seating here. So I left. I get to experience the Broadway musical. Or we go to a restaurant. Oh, you guys have the party room. It's upstairs. This building is so old, we don't have it. Now, luckily, I have a best friend who has a heart of gold and is a very strong person who just said, this scoops me up, carries me up the stairs, we have a good time regardless. But it's just very interesting. In a place like New York City, everybody hops on the subway. Whoa, if you want to get on the subway with a wheelchair, you need to go 6 blocks to the south. It's like, well, I need to go 5 blocks to the north. But you have to do what you have to do. That's the thing about accessibility, though. Like, when it's done well, it just fades into the background. But when it's missing, it becomes the only thing you can see. And I can tell you, that night at the Broadway musical, I felt left out. Now, luckily, one of my friends saw it, and she said, I'm not sticking around, and he can't stick around. So we ended up having a great time at Starbucks at our hotel. Accessibility isn't about convenience. It's about opportunity. It's about giving someone the chance to enter a building, go to work, visit a friend, be a part of a community. Without accessibility, those opportunities, they just disappear. In many parts of the world, especially places with deep history, accessibility wasn't a part of the original design. And while that history is beautiful, it also creates real challenges. Now, while it also creates challenges, it also creates very intriguing stories as well. I will tell you, when visiting places like England or Italy, they have accessibility in mind in a lot of the touristy places you go, but it's kind of an afterthought in the back corner. Now, that can get you into some interesting places. Going to the Vatican, they say, oh, just go around to the side, take that ramp there, and you'll be right inside the basilica. It doesn't take you there, it takes you to the crypt. And you're in a place and you're like, I don't think I'm supposed to be here. Or in England, going to see the crown jewels. That is not an accessible experience. However, if you are not easily embarrassed, it's fine because one of the guards, the beekeepers, will take your wheelchair and wheel you to the front and through the accessible entrance. However, they do it by kind of trying to make it a fun point. My beekeeper decided that he was going to wheel my wheelchair and yell, watch out everybody coming through, this young bloke was out all night drinking and smoking and got into a motorcycle accident. Now, luckily for me, he asked me. He goes, you embarrassing? I said, no, I'm up for it, I'm always a good sport. that stuff. So to this day, it's still one of my favorite stories. But it just goes to show you that things kind of have to go out of the way in places like that. But I still was amazed to find that a place like England was more accessible than a place like New York City. A place that does not have the Americans with Disabilities Act. Still to this day, I'm amazed by that. And all of that leads to a bigger point. Accessibility, it does not happen by accident. It happens on purpose. So there's a story that I always think about that many of us know. It's the story of David and Goliath. David was a young shepherd. Goliath was a giant warrior. By all accounts, David did not stand a chance in that battle. But David didn't rely on size or strength. He relied on faith. He trusted that God had already given him what he needed. And with a sling and a stone, he faced that giant and he won. Today, all of us face some sort of Goliaths in our life. Some are visible, and some are not. In my life, I have faced many Goliaths. Some of them are pretty obvious. Others, you wouldn't imagine that you would have to experience. So growing up, I love sports. I'm a big sportsman. I love competing. And I wanted to be able to compete some way and be a part of a team with my friends. I talked to my physical therapist and said, what do you think I could do that would be able to help me and also give me that experience? And he said, well, you know what? You're built like a rock. So why don't you try wrestling? So I said, all right, I'll try wrestling. So in middle school, I went out and I started wrestling. The middle school coach wasn't too thrilled about the idea, but the high school coach caught wind. And the high school coach said, we'll keep him on the team. He's going to thrive, I promise you. Long story short, kept wrestling and had the privilege of being on a team that won back-to-back state championships and opened up so many other doors for me. Which then takes me into another unimaginable Goliath that I never thought I would have to face. So a couple of years ago, I was working for the NCAA, just right down the street. And we were coming out of COVID, and I was on the social media team for the championships division. We were getting ready to go back out onto the road and travel. Now, when I started in the NCAA, it was 2 months before COVID shut everything down. So, never traveled up to that point. Well, when word got out to our HR and our legal, they freaked out. They had a preconceived notion of what disability meant to them. Disability meant needing to nurture that person, needing to overcomplicate things. Their concern was, well, what if there's an emergency and people rush the floor? I was going to be down on the floor for all these events. And my bosses were like, well, if somebody rushes the floor, I think he's pretty okay in that power wheelchair. It's pretty sturdy. And then the other one was, what if a beam falls from the ceiling and hits me in the head? And my boss said, well, what if a beam falls from the ceiling and hits me in the head? But they couldn't see past the preconceived notions that they had about disability. But in those situations, I had people in my corner that supported me 100%. And I had faith in them, just like they had faith in me. We fought it, and eventually, I was traveling again, getting to attend the College World Series, Division I Wrestling Championships, Women's Final Four, getting to break down barriers because I had people in my corner. For people with disabilities, accessibility challenges can feel like Goliaths, whether it's a set of stairs with no ramp, a doorway that's too narrow, a space that wasn't designed with inclusion in mind. These aren't just inconveniences, they are barriers that stand tall and say, you don't belong here. But here's the truth. No one should have to face those Goliaths alone. Just like David trusted God to provide what he needed, we can trust that God places the right tools and the right people in our lives, whether that's a wrestling coach, or a supervisor, or a coworker. Sometimes those tools are physical, sometimes those tools are people. People who see a barrier and decide to do something about it. People who say, this isn't right. We can fix this. We can do better. And that's exactly what Servants at Work is doing. Every ramp that Saws builds is more than wood and nails. It's freedom. It's independence. It's dignity. It's a way for someone to leave their home, to go to church, to see their family, to live their life. You are not just building ramps, you are helping people overcome their Goliaths. Now, some people may sit back and think, why does this matter? Accessibility matters because people matter. It matters because everyone deserves the chance to participate in the world around them. It matters because inclusion should not be optional. And it matters because when we remove barriers, we don't just change one life, we impact families, communities, and futures. I want to challenge everyone here tonight to think differently about accessibility. Don't think of it as an add-on. Don't think of it as an afterthought. Think of it as a responsibility. Because the reality is, at some point in life, accessibility will matter to all of us. Whether it's for ourselves, a family member, a friend, accessibility is not just about them, it's about all of us. I want to leave you with this. We all have Goliaths in our lives, and while we may not always feel equipped to face them, we are never alone. God places tools in our life. He places people in our lives, and sometimes He calls us to be that tool for someone else. Tonight, I'm looking at a room full of people who have answered that call. People who are building more than ramps. People who are building hope. People who are making the world more accessible, one life at a time. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for the lives you change. And thank you for being the tool that helps others overcome their life. Thank you.